Hi everyone, this is Ben Falcon's Media Corner back again with a brand new AK After Soul review episode for today. This one's going to be on a brand new episode for a film I saw that was released this year for 2022, which this is not a theatrical release film. This is a streaming service film, which this was released on Disney Plus, which this came out back in January in the US, but we got this in March. We got this we got this just 2 days ago, and I just watched this today. I just got done finishing working this film in the afternoon, and I'm here to review this film, in which this is the 6th installment to this franchise and a spin-off. And this is mainly a spin-off to this franchise that all began since 2002. And this is my review on the 2022 computer animated family comedy adventure film, and that is The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. Yep, I'm here to review this movie. So this film is directed by John C. Donkin, and this is, like I said, a spin-off to the Ice Age series, in which we mainly focus on the two possums from the sequels, Crash and Eddie, who are not voiced by Sean William Scott or Josh Pegg, who were the original voice actors from the original movies. This movie has a completely new voice cast. It has no Ray Romano or John Leguizamo or Dennis Leary or Queen Latifah. It has none of those people from coming back to do this movie. It's just overall new unknown actors who I'm not familiar with. And so we follow Crash and Eddie, who basically they feel like they want to have a place of their own, and so what ends up happening to these two characters is that they end up in the Lost World, has now been overtaken by dinosaurs, where there's this new villain who is this jealous dinosaur who wants to take over the Lost World. And basically, for Crash and Eddie, we see them reunite with this one-eyed weasel that we know from the third and fifth movie, Buck Wild, voiced by Simon Pegg, who is the only cast member to come back to do this movie. So we see Buck Wild along with Crash and Eddie. They all have to try and they have to work together to try and save the Lost World, which has been overtaken by dinosaurs, and hopefully they can find a place of their own. So that's pretty much the story of the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. Now, I had no anticipation for this movie whatsoever. Well, I don't hate this franchise. I like the first Ice Age movie quite a lot. It is a great animated film from Blue Sky Studios, which, as you guys may know, they sadly closed their doors last year, which I was shocked to hear about all of that, because I grew up with some of their movies when I was a kid. But just overall, like I said, I think the Ice Age movie is a great movie. But when it comes to the sequels, well, The Meltdown, the second one, I think is a good sequel, but isn't as good as the first. Dawn of the Dinosaurs, the third one, I think is a pretty decent film. It's not as good as the first two films. Most people a few of my friends have different opinions on the third film. I just hear mixed responses about that one. And while the fourth film, Continental Drift, is where the franchise got completely tiring at that point. That one, I thought that was okay, but going back to it, I just don't like it. It's not as good as the first three films, and what they did for the characters in that one, I just kind of think they ruined the franchise, which that was the biggest thing. It's just the characters were not like what they were from the first film, and that's why I think the sequels kind of lacked what the first one was like, which that kind of I think that's what kind of ruined this franchise. And the last film, Collision Course, the fifth film, which for myself and a few of my friends on YouTube, we can tend to agree that's arguably the worst in the franchise, and I just didn't really like that film. It's even worse than the fourth movie. So when I heard we were getting a spin-off to this franchise, I just didn't know what to expect from it, really, since the last one I think was just garbage, and I just didn't like that one whatsoever. And to hear that none of the original cast from the original films were coming back to do this one, none of them were doing this whatsoever. You had no Ray Romano or John Leguizamo or Dennis Leary or Queen Latifah or anyone else, except Simon Pegg was coming to do this film, who he did his character before Buck Wild in the third and the fifth movie. So, and have Crash and Eddie as the main stars, I just think that was a bad choice, really, because I don't really like Crash and Eddie in the sequels. I just think those are just the most annoyingly stupid, dumb characters, really, and I just don't really like them for what they do in the franchise, because since the later sequels, I just think they're not even that. I just don't think they are funny as whatsoever. So I just got done finishing watching this film on Disney Plus this afternoon. It came out 2 days ago in the UK. although it was already released back in January in the US, but I was wondering when we were going to get this in the UK. But I heard this was going to come out in March, so I just got done finishing watching this movie this afternoon, and was this movie really worth it? Not really. I just think I think this movie was just really unnecessary, really, and it was just pointless, really, because I do not really like this movie whatsoever. There's just a lot of things I have to say about this new movie that I just thought weren't even that good. The animation in this film just wasn't that amazing. It just wasn't that great, and the quality of its animation, like the way it's directed, I just didn't like it. I couldn't stand it. It just felt like this movie would have been released to TV, which I heard this was originally going to be a TV series, but they decided to, nope, we'll just make this into a movie. And so I just think that was a pretty bad choice, really, because, again, I just couldn't stand the way it was directed, and the quality of the animation just wasn't that great. In which the original films did have good animation, but here, the animation here in this film just really wasn't that good. And having Crash and Eddie as the lead characters in this one instead of the main characters that we all know from the original series was a pretty bad choice, because again, I don't really like Crash and Eddie. I think they're just insane. They're just annoyingly dumb and just completely stupid, and I just can't stand their characters whatsoever from when it comes to sequels. Since in the later sequels, they've just gone more dumb than ever. And for the new people who voiced the characters here, weren't even that good. And for the new additional voice cast in this film, who voices the original characters from the original films, weren't even that good. But Simon Pegg, who does come back to do this film, to play Buck Wild like he did in 3 and 5, I think he was really wasted here in this movie. And all the voice cast all around were really wasted, including the new additional characters, which I just didn't find any of them really that memorable enough whatsoever. And also, there is one character they completely forgot to put in this film, which I couldn't believe what the filmmakers did here with this film. They completely forgot to put in this well-known character that always starts out the film before we introduce these main characters. Have you guessed yet? It's Scrat. They forgot him. They forgot to put him in this movie, which I don't know what the filmmakers were thinking of. They just completely forgot to put him in this movie, which he is pretty entertaining for the most part in the Ice Age series. But for here, I just couldn't believe they forgot to put him here in this film. And also this whole film completely lacks any attention on the original characters from the original films, like Manny, San Diego, and Ellie. Completely lacks them. It mostly focused on Crash and Eddie and Buck Wild, which I think, because again, having Crash and Eddie as the main stars, I think was a bad choice, as well as having no Scrooge was also a bad choice, as well as lacking the original characters. This movie completely has some bad choices, which I couldn't believe what the filmmakers were thinking of here. And the storytelling in this film was really forgettable. I really got less invested from the whole adventure of Crash and Eddie and Buck Wild, which I didn't think their adventure was that memorable enough, as well as for what the villain, like the villain is like this dinosaur, which I think he was really forgettable here. The villain was forgettable, and for his story plot line, I just think was really forgettable. And the whole humor and jokes in this film were really, really awful, extremely awful. I barely laughed a single bit. They were just cliched and dumb and mostly silly, slapstick, stupid, dumb, which Crash and Eddie do provide all the time in this movie, which they weren't even that funny. And there are toilet jokes in this film. There is pee jokes in this film, which this film has a few of those, which they weren't even that funny. And just honestly, there's just nothing else to say. There's nothing else to say about this film other than I think this was just a pointless and unnecessary installment for this series, because this franchise is just completely dead, I think. But if you are a fan of this franchise, I just don't know what way to recommend this film, because I honestly don't recommend this film. If you're willing to watch an animated film for the kids, the ones I suggest you go and see are Sing 2 or check out Hotel Transylvania 4 on Amazon Prime. Those are the ones I really suggest. This one, I don't really suggest this film, because this film was just pointless and just not that funny, and I didn't have a really good time with this film. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. And as you guys may have guessed, I'm going to give the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild a 0.5 out of 5. yeah, I don't really suggest this film. The ones I do really suggest is, just like I said, I recommend seeing Sing 2, because it already came out in the UK in cinemas, and if it is still playing in a local cinema near you in the UK, I do suggest I do suggest you go and see that film. Or if you have Amazon Prime, I do suggest out checking out Hotel Transylvania 4 Transylvania, if you're a fan of that franchise. But here, I honestly do not suggest you see this film, because again, this movie just really wasn't that good from beginning to end. So thank you guys so much for watching for my AK After a Sword review on the Ice Age Adventures of Buckwater. Let me know what you think of this film if you have seen this already. I'm kind of curious to thinking what you think of this film. Did you personally enjoy it, or did you absolutely hate this film? So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more reviews, and as always, this has been Foggins Media Corner signing off.